Have you ever seen this? This is called a pin. The knight is pinned because it can't move, and if it does move, well, black is going to lose the queen, right? Knight g8, and now bishop takes queen. Now, have you ever seen this? This is a slightly more complex version, right? But the knight is still pinned, right? If the knight takes this knight, then the bishop will take the queen. This is called putting pressure on the pinned piece, or PP on the PP for short, and as some people like to call it. Now, would you believe me if I told you that around 99% of chess players fall for this? Yes, that's right, and they don't correct this mistake because, well, a lot of people don't know that they're falling for this. This particular position kind of occurs a lot after, say, e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6. A lot of people like to play this, and I used to play it a lot as well. Bishop c4, bishop c5, yada 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 yada. And now castles. Now, people like to copy each other. Knight c3 is a very common move I see a lot of people play, but c3 is a slightly better move where you're trying to aim for pawn to d4 or pawn to b4. Go check out my Italian videos if you haven't seen those already. But knight c3 is a very common move, and after d6 you might be like, oh well, the position is symmetrical. There are no outplays that one side can make to beat the other, right? But you'd be wrong, because bishop g5 comes, and all of a sudden, black's knight is pinned. Now you might say, oh well, this is not a big deal, right? Let's just attack the pinning piece, right? Because then it's gonna move back, and then, well, I'm not pinned anymore, and I pin you. Ha ha! Right? Unfortunately, it's not that easy, because after bishop h4, pawn to g5, number one, you are exposing your king, right? Pushing pawns in front of your king isn't really the greatest idea sometimes. And second of all, here it just straight up doesn't work. After knight takes g5, pawn takes g5, and bishop takes g5, the knight is still attacked, and a lot of pressure is going to be put on it. White is completely winning here, and is going to be up material. So if you don't take anything away from this video, take away this trap, at least. At any rate, a lot of people will just ignore it and go something like bishop d7. And after knight to d5, well, we simply put pressure on the pinned piece. Now you might be like, well, what is white's threat, right? Because say if I do nothing, right? And if white takes, I mean, is this that bad? I didn't even lose material. Well, first of all, it is really bad for two reasons. Number one, you have opened up your king on the g file. This makes it really susceptible to attack. And number two, you have doubled pawns, which are always a weakness. And number three, just a nice little side effect of all of these, the f5 square is really weak. Now, this just goes back all the way to e4 and e5, right? The d5 and f5 squares are always really weak, and here, white can just take advantage of this immediately. After, say, takes, knight takes f6 isn't even the best move, by the way. Knight h4, knight f5 is pretty strong of an idea. White might go king h1, f4, bring his queen in, and yeah, black is toast. I've beaten too many people in this way. So, just because black goes a6 doesn't mean that we have to relieve pressure on the pin. Generally, when you're pinning someone, it's a good idea to keep pressure on it and release it as late as possible. You don't want to release the tension. Queen d2, ignoring it, and developing a piece. And say pawn to b5. Black already lost the game, by the way. Bishop takes knight, takes queen h6, ignoring the threat on the bishop. And yeah, when black takes, either this is going to be checkmate, or we are going to win the queen. After queen takes knight and queen takes queen, you should easily win this game, especially with the black king being as weak as it is. So now that we know what white's plan is, or you can do this with black conversely, right, with bishop g4 and knight to d4. Now that we know what the plan is, let's see how we can prevent this. So first of all, going back to the beginning, when white goes d3 and has an intention of pinning you, a lot of top players like to employ this strategy against the Italian and the Ruy Lopez. They just don't castle, right? Because you're not scared of pushing pawns in front of your king if your king isn't even there. And you're just gaining space. And moreover, you might just be attacking white's king. So if bishop g5 here, right? White is worse after h6, bishop h4, and g5, and bishop g4. Black is going to do this funny counterpin. He's going to start pushing his pawns. And he's not going to castle this direction. He probably could, But more likely than not, black is going to play a move like queen to d7 and castle queenside, getting his king safe over there. Another thing that you can do here, and it's definitely just the more simple approach, is don't get pinned in the first place. It's kind of nasty to deal with. I recommend instead of going d6 in a position like this, just going h6 so bishop g5 isn't possible. You can continue with d6 and your normal stuff anytime you want now. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you realized what this trap is. And yeah, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.